Some mornings begin before you even open your eyes. You wake up and your body is there, but your mind already feels tired. Not because something bad happened, not because the day has started wrong, just tired. You lie there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, and it already feels like you're behind. There's nothing loud in the room, no alarms screaming, no urgent messages demanding an answer. And still, something feels heavy. The day hasn't even begun, yet it already feels full. You think about what needs to be done, not in detail, just the weight of it. The emails, the responsibilities, the quiet expectations waiting for you. All of it sitting there at once, like a single object that's too large to move. You haven't failed at anything yet. You haven't made a wrong choice. But there's a pressure in your chest that says, this is too much. And maybe the strangest part is how silent it all is. No one sees this moment. No one knows you're lying there, trying to gather enough energy just to start. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. Inside, it feels like you're already carrying the entire day on your back. You scroll your phone without really reading. You check the time, even though it doesn't change anything. You tell yourself you should get up. You don't feel lazy. You feel overwhelmed. It's not that you don't want to move forward. It's that everything feels stacked together. One long, unbroken stretch, morning, afternoon, night. All of it pressing down at the same time. No one ever talks about this part. They talk about ambition, about goals, about building a better life, but they rarely talk about how heavy a normal day can feel before it even begins. There's a quiet question that shows up in moments like this. It doesn't sound dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It just sits there. Where am I actually going today? And why does it already feel like too much? Sometimes you start to wonder if the problem is you, if you're weaker than you used to be, if you've lost discipline, if everyone else has figured something out that you somehow missed. But pause for a second. Look at what you're really doing. You're trying to carry an entire day in one moment, an entire life compressed into a single morning. Every task, every worry, every expectation, all held at once with hands that were never meant to hold that much. Imagine trying to lift something far bigger than your arms can wrap around, not because you're incapable, but because the object itself was never meant to be carried that way. So, here's a quieter question, a slower one. What if the problem isn't that life is too heavy? What if it's that you're trying to carry it all at the same time? And if that's true, then maybe this morning isn't asking you to be stronger. Maybe it's asking you to carry things differently. Not everything, not the whole day, just enough to take the next step. And before we talk about what that looks like, it helps to understand why so many days feel this way in the first place.
If you've ever felt that weight in the morning, the kind that presses down before you've even lifted your head from the pillow, you're not alone. It's a quiet heaviness, like the air itself has thickened overnight, making every breath a little more labored. We all experience it at some point, that inexplicable drag that turns the simple act of getting out of bed into a monumental task. But the strange part, the truly insidious part, is how quickly we turn inward and assume something is fundamentally wrong with us. We label ourselves as lazy, unmotivated, or broken in some indefinable way. We convince ourselves that we're the outlier, the one who can't keep up with the relentless pace of life. Yet, as we wake up already tired, the world around us seems primed with answers, bombarding us from every angle. Billboards scream about productivity hacks, social media feeds overflow with success stories, and self-help books line the shelves promising transformation. The directives are endless. Work harder, think bigger, set clearer goals, build a better plan, push through the resistance. Everywhere you look, the message is the same, drilled into our consciousness like a mantra. Life is about progress, about moving forward at all costs, about constantly evolving, becoming more efficient, more productive, more than you are today. It's presented as the ultimate truth, the key to fulfillment. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable, even inspiring. Who wouldn't want to grow, to achieve, to leave a mark? But no one really talks about what happens before all of that grand ambition kicks in, before motivation can spark, before discipline takes root, before ambition even has a chance to show up and propel us forward. We gloss over the foundational struggles, the raw, unpolished moments that precede any real action. No one talks about the mornings when you already feel behind, as if the race started without you and you're scrambling to catch up. When the very idea of improving your life feels heavier than the life you're already carrying, like adding bricks to an overburdened backpack. In those moments, success stories don't inspire you, they exhaust you. Hearing about someone else's triumphs, their meticulously crafted routines or overnight breakthroughs only amplifies your fatigue. It's not envy, it's depletion. Because when you're overwhelmed, you don't lack vision or dreams, you lack space, mental space, emotional space, the room to breathe without the constant echo of obligations and expectations crowding in. The world keeps asking you to zoom out, to envision grand vistas, 5-year plans, big, audacious goals, a clear, unwavering direction that maps out your entire future. But when your chest already feels tight, constricted by invisible bands, zooming out doesn't help. It just makes everything blur together into an indistinct haze of anxiety and pressure. And that's usually when the quiet self-judgment begins to creep in, insidious and unrelenting. You tell yourself you should be able to handle this, that it's not that hard, that other people do it effortlessly. Look at them, thriving, posting about their wins, juggling it all with apparent ease. That maybe you're just not strong enough to withstand the demands, not organized enough to structure your chaos, not disciplined enough to push through the inertia. These thoughts loop endlessly, eroding your confidence like water wearing down stone. But that conclusion, that harsh self-verdict, comes from a deep misunderstanding of what overwhelmed truly is. Feeling overwhelmed isn't a sign that you're weak or deficient. It's not a character flaw or a personal failing. It's often a sign that you're trying to carry things in a way no one was meant to, shouldering burdens that are too broad, too amorphous for any single person to manage alone. We're taught from a young age to think of life as something we need to manage all at once, like a massive puzzle where every piece must fit perfectly right now. Career aspirations demanding constant attention, relationships requiring nurturing and emotional investment, health regimens that insist on daily vigilance, finances that loom with bills and budgets, purpose, that elusive quest for meaning pulling us in existential directions, all important, all real and valid components of existence.
But when they're stacked together in your mind, piled haphazardly without boundaries, they don't stay separate and compartmentalized. They merge into one large, undefined pressure, a monolithic weight that defies easy handling. And your nervous system, wired for survival rather than multitasking marathons, doesn't know how to respond to something that vague and that heavy. It can't parse the abstract. It reacts to threats, real or perceived. So it responds the only way it can, with fatigue that seeps into your bones, with avoidance behaviors that make you scroll endlessly instead of starting, with that familiar feeling of wanting to lie still a little longer, not because you're lazy or indolent, but because you genuinely don't know where to start amid the cacophony. This is where a lot of conventional advice misses the point entirely, offering surface-level solutions to a deeper issue.
It assumes the problem is motivation, that if you just pumped yourself up with affirmations or caffeine, you'd snap out of it, or attitude, suggesting a mindset shift will magically realign everything, or even mindset itself, as if positive thinking alone could dissolve the tangle. But what if the real problem is scale? What if it's not about willing yourself harder, but about resizing the load to something humanly manageable? Ancient Stoic thinkers like Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus didn't see philosophy as a tool to dominate life or conquer every obstacle with brute force. They saw it as a way to survive it, to navigate the inevitable storms with grace and resilience. Especially on ordinary days, the ones without dramatic crises, but filled with subtle erosions of spirit. Especially when things felt heavy, when the weight of existence pressed down without mercy. They didn't ask grandiose questions like, how do I control everything in my path? They asked a quieter, more grounded question. What is actually within my control right now? Not tomorrow's uncertainties, not this year's ambitions, right now, in this fleeting instant. And that question changes something important, something profound. It pierces through the fog of overwhelm. Because when you're overwhelmed, the issue isn't that life is too big or insurmountable in its entirety. It's that you're treating the entire day as one indivisible unit, one long, unbroken stretch you have to carry from morning to night without setting it down, without pausing to recalibrate. No one can do that sustainably, not consistently, not without breaking down physically, mentally, or emotionally under the strain. But here's the part we rarely hear amid the noise of hustle culture. You don't need to shrink your life to make it bearable. You don't need to lower your standards or abandon your aspirations. You don't need to stop caring about the things that matter to you. You just don't need to carry the whole day at once, compressing it into a single, suffocating load. There's a crucial difference between responsibility and compression. Responsibility is choosing what's yours to carry, selecting the burdens that align with your values and capabilities. Compression is trying to hold everything together in a single, unyielding grip, forcing disparate elements into one unmanageable mass. When everything is compressed into one mental object, work deadlines mingling with family worries, health goals clashing with financial stresses, you lose the sense of choice entirely. It all feels equally urgent, a symphony of alarms blaring without priority. Equally heavy, each one pulling with the same gravitational force. Equally non-negotiable, as if opting out of any piece would cause the whole structure to collapse. And when there's no sense of choice, there's no sense of control. That's why overwhelm feels so personal, so intimately violating. It takes away agency, that fundamental human need to feel like an active participant rather than a passive victim. It makes you feel like life is happening to you, a relentless wave crashing over without respite, instead of something you're participating in, shaping with intention. Stoicism doesn't respond to this by telling you to care less, to detach coldly from the world. It doesn't advocate for apathy or resignation. Instead, it responds by asking you to narrow your focus, not your values or passions, but your attention, to direct it like a beam of light rather than a flood lamp. What if instead of asking how to handle the entire day with its myriad demands, you asked something smaller, more immediate? What can I carry in this moment? Not because it's all that matters in the grand scheme, but because it's all you can carry at once without fracturing.
This isn't about lowering expectations or settling for mediocrity. It's about restoring proportion, about recalibrating your perspective to match reality's rhythms. A day is made of moments, each one a discrete entity. Moments are made of choices, small forks in the path, and choices are where control lives, where you reclaim your power.
When you try to manage a whole day in your head, preempting every variable, you lose touch with that elemental truth. But when you bring your attention back to what's directly in front of you, the task at hand, the breath in your lungs, something shifts. The pressure doesn't disappear like magic. Life's complexities remain, but it becomes clearer, more defined, less suffocating, like sorting a jumbled drawer into neat compartments. You start to see that overwhelm often comes from bundling things that were never meant to be bundled together. Decisions from later in the day mixed indiscriminately with worries from next week. Tasks that don't belong together, routine chores clashing with creative pursuits, competing for the same finite mental space. It's like trying to listen to every conversation in a crowded room at once, the din rising to an unbearable level. The noise isn't coming from one voice being too loud. It's coming from trying to hear all of them simultaneously without discernment. So instead of forcing yourself to be stronger, to grit your teeth and endure, what if you practiced being more precise, honing your focus like a craftsman sharpens a tool? This is where the idea of today becomes important. Not today as a vague concept or a calendar square, but today as a boundary, a protective fence around your energy. You don't need to solve your life in one fell swoop. You don't need to fix everything that's broken or unresolved. You don't even need to feel good, optimistic, or energized to begin. You only need to engage with what belongs to this part of the day, this sliver of time. Morning doesn't ask you to carry the afternoon's burdens prematurely. This moment doesn't demand that you answer questions that belong to later hours or distant futures. And when you respect those boundaries, honoring the natural divisions of time, you begin to feel something subtle return. Not motivation in a burst of enthusiasm, not excitement like a sudden adrenaline rush, but control, a quiet, steady reclaiming of your autonomy. Not control over outcomes, which are often beyond our grasp, influenced by chance and others, but control over your attention, where you direct your gaze, your next move, the immediate step forward, your response to the present stimuli. That's why small actions matter more than they seem on the surface. Not because they change everything overnight, rewriting your narrative in bold strokes, but because they return something that overwhelm systematically takes away: choice. When life feels heavy, oppressively so, choice becomes invisible, shrouded in the mist of obligation. Everything feels mandatory, imposed from without, leaving no room for volition. But the moment you narrow your focus, even slightly, perhaps by tackling one email instead of the inbox, or one breath instead of the day's agenda, choice reappears like a hidden path emerging from the fog. You begin to notice that you don't have to carry the whole day to move forward in it. You only have to carry what fits in your hands right now, what you can manage without strain. And if you can't carry the whole day, maybe you were never meant to. Maybe the secret lies in releasing that illusion, in embracing the incremental, the momentary. This realization opens the door to what comes next, practical ways to apply this shift, tools drawn from Stoic wisdom and modern insights to transform overwhelm from a constant companion into a passing visitor. By starting small, we build the foundation for sustainable progress, moment by moment, choice by choice.
At some point, when everything feels heavy, the kind of heaviness that settles in your bones like an uninvited guest, a quiet thought inevitably shows up, whispering in the back of your mind. Does this even matter compared to everything else? You're standing in the kitchen, perhaps with sunlight filtering through a half-drawn curtain, the room slightly messy with last night's dishes lingering in the sink, your phone already buzzing insistently on the counter, your body still slow and sluggish from sleep that didn't quite restore you. And in that vulnerable moment, part of you thinks, what's the point of fixing any of this, of tidying up, of responding, of starting,
when the day itself feels too big to manage, an insurmountable mountain looming ahead. That thought is more common than people admit, more universal than the polished facades we present to the world. It sneaks in during those unguarded intervals, when the weight of obligations presses down, making even the simplest tasks seem futile. Because when life feels large and unwieldy, encompassing endless to-do lists and unspoken pressures, small actions start to look meaningless, almost embarrassing in their modesty, like pretending control exists when it doesn't, when the chaos of existence seems to mock any attempt at order. We dismiss them as trivial, as drops in an ocean that won't alter the tide, but that's exactly where the misunderstanding lies, deep-rooted and pervasive. Small actions were never meant to solve your life in one grand sweep, to untangle every knot or illuminate every shadow. They weren't designed as miracle cures or transformative rituals. They were meant to remind you that you still have choice, that amid the storm, you retain the power to steer your own responses, however modestly. Take the morning itself, that transitional space between rest and reality. Not the whole morning with its cascade of demands, but just the first few minutes after waking. You sit up in bed, your muscles protesting, your head already running ahead of you like an unchecked horse. Messages piling up on your device, deadlines clicking closer, conversations you're avoiding, words left unsaid that now fester, things you should have done already, regrets echoing from yesterday. The body is here, grounded in the present, feeling the cool sheets or the warmth of the room. The mind is somewhere else entirely, projecting into futures, replaying pasts, scattering energy in all directions. And then there's a choice most people skip over because it feels too simple to matter, too mundane to register as significant. Do I stay in this fog, letting the mental haze dictate my start, or do I do one thing, just one, that brings me back into the room, anchoring me to the now? Maybe it's just making the bed, not perfectly, with hospital corners and fluffed pillows like in those aspirational videos that flood our feeds, not with any expectation of praise or perfection, just enough to change the shape of the space, to smooth the rumpled fabric, to create a semblance of order in this intimate corner. And immediately, as if on cue, the old doubt shows up, that inner critic we all harbor. How does this help, really? It doesn't help with your future uncertainties. It doesn't fix your job dissatisfaction or the cracks in your career path. It doesn't answer the bigger questions that keep you up at night, about purpose, about legacy, about what it all means. But it does something quieter, something more profound and subtle. It takes one small corner of the world, the disarray of your sleeping area, and says, this part is mine to shape. In Stoic terms, that's not productivity in the modern metric-driven sense, chasing KPIs and output. That's control, pure and unadorned. Not control over outcomes, which are often fickle and influenced by forces beyond us. Control over response, your deliberate reaction to the immediate environment. A bed made badly, with lumps and imperfect folds, is still a signal, a quiet affirmation. It says, I can still act inside this moment, exerting influence where it's possible. That matters more than we think, far more than the dismissive voice in our heads would have us believe, because overwhelm isn't just about having too much to do, an overflowing inbox or calendar. It's about losing the feeling that your actions belong to you, that they originate from your will rather than external compulsion. It's the erosion of agency, where every move feels reactive, forced by circumstance rather than chosen freely.
The same thing happens with your phone, that ubiquitous device that has become an extension of ourselves. You reach for it without deciding to, almost on autopilot, your hand gravitating toward it as if pulled by an invisible string. Your thumb moves before you've fully woken up, scrolling through notifications, absorbing the digital deluge, news headlines blaring crises, messages demanding responses, other people's lives already in progress, curated snapshots of productivity and joy that make your own start feel inadequate. And suddenly you're behind, plunged into deficit without having chosen anything yet, without even a moment to orient yourself. The question appears again, bubbling up from that quiet resistance.
Does it even matter if I put this down? If I resist the pull just this once? The twist is that it matters precisely because it feels small, inconsequential in the grand scheme. Putting the phone face down for 5 minutes, or 10 if you can muster it, doesn't protect you from the world's chaos. It doesn't make you disciplined overnight, transforming you into a paragon of focus. It doesn't turn you into a better version of yourself, as if such changes happen in isolation. It simply creates a pause, a deliberate interruption in the flow of incoming stimuli. And a pause is not nothing. It's not emptiness or laziness. A pause is a declaration that this moment doesn't fully own you, that you're not a slave to the constant notifications or the algorithm's demands, that you can decide when to engage on your terms, reclaiming a sliver of sovereignty. In a world that constantly pulls at your attention, through apps designed to addict, through social pressures to stay connected, even a short pause is an act of self-respect. Not self-care in the loud, commercialized sense, with bubble baths and spa days marketed as essentials. Self-respect in the quiet sense, the internal kind no one sees or applauds, but which fortifies you from within. Then there's the body itself, often the first casualty of overwhelm. The heaviness in your limbs, the stiffness that makes you want to stay still because movement feels like effort you can't afford, a luxury reserved for when you're ready. You tell yourself you'll move later, procrastinating action in favor of inertia. When you feel better, more rested, when you have more energy, as if it will magically appear. But later is an idea that depends on motivation, that elusive spark we chase. And motivation is unreliable when you're tired, when fatigue is already set in, creating a vicious cycle. So instead, there's another small question to pose to yourself, a gentle inquiry. What's the smallest movement that still counts as choice, that asserts your presence? Maybe it's standing up and stretching your arms once, reaching toward the ceiling, feeling the pull in your muscles. Not a full workout with sets and reps, not a structured routine from a fitness app, just a signal to the nervous system that you're still here, alive and capable of initiation. The mind immediately tries to dismiss it, that habitual skeptic. This isn't enough to make a difference. And it's right, in a narrow sense. It's not enough to change your life trajectory or overhaul your health. But it is enough to change your relationship with this moment, shifting from passivity to engagement. Stoicism never promised that small actions would make life easy, erasing hardships with a wave. It suggested something more practical, more grounded in human reality, that dignity lives in what you choose to do, even when conditions are not ideal, when exhaustion lingers, when motivation wanes, especially then, in those testing times, because that's when character is forged. Look around your space, taking in the details that accumulate unnoticed. A desk cluttered with papers and gadgets, a corner of a room where laundry or books have piled up, a surface that's slowly collecting objects you don't want to deal with, bills, reminders, miscellaneous items. The pile becomes a symbol, a visual metaphor of everything you're avoiding, the deferred decisions, of how behind you feel in the race of life. And again, the same thought surfaces, persistent. What's the point of addressing this now? The point isn't order for order's sake or aesthetics to impress visitors. The point is narrowing the world down to a size your hands can manage, reducing the infinite to the finite. Clearing one small area, perhaps just sorting a single drawer or wiping a countertop, doesn't mean you've fixed your life, banishing all disorder. It means you've identified one boundary, one domain where you can exert influence. This is the part I'm responsible for, you affirm. Not everything under the sun, just this manageable piece.
That's how agency comes back, not in a flood, but gradually. Not all at once, overwhelming in its intensity, but piece by piece, like assembling a mosaic. People often misunderstand this approach and think it's about lowering standards, as if embracing the small means you've given up on bigger dreams, resigned to mediocrity. But it's the opposite, a strategic pivot.
When you're overwhelmed, aiming at the whole day actually makes you weaker, diluting your efforts. It scatters your attention across too broad a front. It turns everything into undifferentiated pressure, a constant hum of anxiety. Small actions, in contrast, gather attention. They bring it home, concentrating your energy where it can yield results. A glass of water is not mere hydration advice from a wellness guru. It's a reminder that your body is not an afterthought, neglected in the pursuit of mental tasks. One honest task completed, perhaps replying to a single email or folding a load of laundry, is not productivity in the corporate sense. It's proof that effort and outcome can still connect, that your actions have tangible effects. One step outside, feeling the air on your skin, is not a lifestyle change or a commitment to daily walks. It's a line drawn between inside your head, the realm of rumination, and the world as it actually is, tangible and immediate. Each of these actions answers the same quiet question that echoes through overwhelm. Can I still choose? And every time the answer is yes, even softly, even tentatively, something stabilizes within you. Not your mood, which fluctuates like weather, not your circumstances, which may remain challenging, but your sense of self, that core identity that persists through trials. Because meaning doesn't arrive as a dramatic feeling, a eureka moment or emotional high. It arrives as coherence, an alignment between thought and action. When what you do, even in small ways, aligns with the idea that you are not just reacting to life's barrage, but participating in it, shaping it where possible. That's why these actions feel different from the habits people talk about online, those optimized routines promising reinvention. They're not about building a new identity from scratch, crafting a persona for social validation. They're about preventing erosion, halting the slow loss of self that happens when every day feels like it's happening to you, imposed rather than co-created. The Stoic twist here is simple, almost uncomfortable in how plain and unadorned it is, stripped of hype. A small action chosen freely amid discomfort is not small at all in its implications. It's a statement made against chaos, a defiant assertion, a way of saying, I don't control the whole day with its unpredictabilities, but I control this fragment, this response, and that's enough to carry the next part. Not the entire expanse, but just the next part, the immediate horizon. You don't do these things to feel good, chasing fleeting pleasure. You do them to remain intact, preserving your integrity amid flux, to keep a thread of continuity between who you are at your core and what you do in the world. Some days that thread is thin, frayed by fatigue or setbacks. Some days it's barely visible, obscured by doubt. But it holds, resilient in its subtlety. And when it holds, you can keep going, not heroically with fanfare and acclaim, not perfectly without stumbles or regressions, just steadily enough to stay yourself while the day moves forward, unfolding in its own rhythm. This foundation of small, chosen acts pave the way for what follows: deeper integration, sustained momentum, and a life where overwhelm recedes, replaced by purposeful participation.
So maybe this is where we stop trying to carry more than today is asking for. Not next month, not the rest of the year, not the version of yourself you think you should become. Just today. Because the truth is, none of us really control what the next year looks like. Plans change. People change. Energy changes. That's not a failure of discipline. That's just how life works. What we do control is smaller than that, but it's also closer. We control what we choose to carry in this moment. And habits, in this sense, were never meant to turn you into someone else. They weren't designed to fix your life. They were designed to keep you from breaking when life feels heavy. A habit isn't a demand. It's a tool. Something you reach for when things feel unstable. Something that gives your hands something solid to hold. One small action doesn't promise progress. It promises continuity.
It says, even on a difficult day, I can still choose something that belongs to me. That's enough. If you're listening to this and part of you feels tired just thinking about doing better, that's okay. This isn't about doing more. It's about doing what fits. So here's a quiet question you can sit with without answering it perfectly. Which part of today feels light enough for you to carry? Not the most important part, not the most impressive one, just the part that doesn't resist you. Maybe it's a few minutes of silence. Maybe it's finishing one small task. Maybe it's simply stopping yourself from rushing into the next thing. Whatever it is, let it be enough for now. Because you're not someone who's failing to change their life. You're someone learning how to stay intact inside it. Learning how to choose even when the choices are small. Learning how to carry only what belongs to this moment. That's not weakness, that's skill. And it grows quietly one day at a time without needing proof or applause. You don't have to control everything to move forward. You just have to keep choosing what you can carry. And if today that choice feels small, that's fine. You're not weak. You're learning how to carry.